let's do a quick update on the Challenge All Stars 3, episode 3. Let me get my negativities out of the way because you know I like to dwell on the negative, and there's definitely some negatives with this season so far. It has a bit of a stink that the modern MTV seasons have that show on a downward spiral. And like what made season 2 so great is that the editing managed to be both entertaining and tell a story. I feel like they're struggling to do both this season. Or let me word that a little better, because season 2 told more than one story. There was definitely threads throughout the stories. This season only has basically one story so far. They're kind of putting in a second one now, but they've kind of been struggling within 3 episodes to get that off the ground. And I also just don't find these episodes that entertaining compared to the first 2 seasons. But that's just my opinion. The main story they keep trying to shove down our throats is Wes and Yes, and Wes versus Yes. So I guess that's something we're going to see a showdown for, maybe, or maybe one of them will get the other one thrown into an elimination soon. I don't know. I guess I'm just really not feeling this story because it has kind of ate up most of the first 3 episodes. And Yes isn't the most interesting person, but at least they're trying to make him interesting, I guess, with this story. And then it's been too much Wes for me. That's why I never really cared to have certain players in these all-star seasons, because the producers will overdo it with them, and we're kind of seeing that with Wes. They are overdoing it with Wes's storyline, and his storyline doesn't even make a whole lot of sense so far. The way they've told it, they made it seem like everyone is against Wes or everyone's distrusting of Wes, but clearly Wes has some alliances that we're not seeing. It has to be more than just MJ and Janae, because he's not getting thrown into these eliminations. I guess we do know that he's close to Brad and maybe Kayla as well, but Wes must be in with the newest Girls Alliance or something, because the edit for him to be like an outsider isn't really looking that way when it comes to the authority voting who goes into an elimination. So something's off with the edit there with Wes. Now that new alliance, which didn't last very long, which is why I can't really count it a new storyline yet. So the Treehouse Alliance seems to be Kayla, Tina, Veronica, Jemmye, and Sylvia. Derek was in the room with them. I don't know if that meant that he was also in on this alliance or not, but I guess maybe he's trying to play within that alliance. And I guess their goal is obviously to eliminate the big challenge threats like Kendall and Kellyanne right now, or at least that seems to be Kayla's plotting. However, within this episode, Tina broke her hand, so she's out. And then Jemmye had to go home to see her father because he's like in bad shape. But the Treehouse Alliance is down to 3 now. And the other women, Kendall is clearly with Kellyanne because they're obviously being ganged up on. I don't really know where the hell Roni is because the editing isn't telling us, and I think they should do that and give us a clearer picture. I don't know why these shows decide that their editing has to be so unclear 3 episodes into a season, but we're getting some Survivor-like editing out of the Challenge All-Stars 3, unfortunately. And then there's Janae, who was probably in the middle like she likes to be. Honestly, Janae is the best player this season so far. We saw her game grow to be superior on season 2, and I think we're kind of seeing it again. Janae is a player that seems to always be able to be in good with everyone. She likes to play all angles. She's talking with MJ to be in with Wes, since allegedly people are against him, even though, like I've said, the edit isn't really showing us who is really against Wes, because it doesn't seem like anybody's really against Wes if they're not trying to get rid of him. Wes also has Nehemiah. I forgot about Nehemiah. So Wes clearly has alliances in this game, so the whole edit or narrative to make it seem like he's on the outs makes 0 sense. The editing makes 0 sense. And then the other big story from this episode was Kendall's vote for the sabotage, because Yes and Kendall got sabotages. Yes sabotaged Wes, even though Wes tried to convince him not to, and I guess this is Wes also trying to fit his narrative that Yes is playing the game and making some excuses that he's not. Wes has a little bit of a point, but they're making it seem like a bigger deal than it actually is. And then Kendall asked if she could vote for a guy to sabotage. I like that men can give a sabotage to women and women can give a sabotage to men. That makes the game much more interesting to me. Kendall ends up sabotaging MJ though. It was really unclear why, and it kind of just turned Janae against Kendall. So Kendall's playing a really bad game strategically and seems like socially as well. You know, Kendall and Kellyanne good at the physical challenges, but still not catching up to the game when it comes to the whole strategy of it. I think Kellyanne was trying to wake Kendall up that they maybe need to start doing that, but they could be running out of time on that. And then MJ, who gets last place because he sabotaged, ends up wanting Cyrus, even though Wes is on this journey to try and get yes but in, but Cyrus is put in and MJ defeats Cyrus. I was kind of hoping for the upset in that elimination. I think it would have made this season more interesting than what we're getting so far, in my opinion, because the editing just isn't doing a good enough job to make this season at least as entertaining as the first two, but it's certainly not as good editing as season 2 had. That gave us the story we needed to see. They're not doing a good enough job giving us everyone's story and having multiple story threads run throughout the season so far, 3 episodes in. Very disappointed in that, frankly. We kind of have Nehemiah, who's kind of without his alliances now. He lost all of his alliances from season 2. Melinda had to go out because of injury, and Alt was eliminated in the elimination. He loses Cyrus in this episode. Tech's not on this season. So Nehemiah is kind of forced to be by Wes's side, which is why I think Wes's edit continues to make a little sense. Wes is clearly doing better at the social game than the narrative they're trying to paint, which makes me think Wes is probably going to get very far in this season, if not win, because his edit is very over-edited. So either Yes is going to eliminate Wes at some point in the season, or Wes is going to get Yes out and then probably win the game. Those are the only 2 scenarios I see for Wes's edit so far, because it's not making any sense to me. So the women's side is becoming much more interesting to me. We'll see what happens with the alliance, even though it's kind of down to 3 now. But Kayla, Veronica, and Sylvia kind of declared war on Kendall and Kellyanne, and then they lost numbers. But they probably have some numbers with the guys. And we're getting a replacement since we lost 2 women in this episode. I am pretty sure I know who the replacement is. Not somebody I'm excited to see. That's all I'll say about that. So yeah, this episode, more disappointing than anything. I really hope the editing can give us more. Also, Naya is another one. We're not getting an edit for her. I was kind of interested in seeing Naya and Jordan in this season after all the hoopla from their past, and them both being, well, one getting eliminated from the show because Naya got pulled out of the show, and then Jordan had the hoopla from the fans. They didn't want it back. So I kind of wanted them to have more of a story on the season, but Naya doesn't really have a storyline. I have no idea where she fits in with the women. They haven't painted that to us. And we're not getting a whole lot of Jordan either. Jordan's edit makes no sense. Wes sabotages him, and then Jordan hasn't been doing anything to retaliate. So I don't know if Jordan's just playing a really dumb game or what, because his edit makes no sense either. So the editing needs to get better. They're giving us some MTV shit that I don't want to see for the last few seasons of the MTV version. Shitty editing. I hope they pull it together, because this All-Star so far is more disappointing than anything else.